to the Mind the Cure. We in the building here talking about stop the shenanigans and shine again. So if you are ready to curate a mindset, a mentality, a life that makes you feel beautiful inside and out, that allows you to pursue your purpose with passion, that empowers you to walk in peace, that inspires you to jump for joy, excited about where you are in life and where you are going. Let's get going with this Mind the Cure today. So, the shine that we're talking about is an external and an internal shine. And as I've been researching about the skin-mind connection, what I learned is that there is a type of impact that stress can have on the skin. So, of course, stress can increase certain hormones that cause your skin to look dull, lose moisture. And then stress can also trigger a worsening of an existing skin condition. So we don't want no parts of this excess stress that's leading to our skin being a mess, do we? No. Now, when you are experiencing excess stress, your cortisol levels are going up, 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 up. And as your cortisol levels are going up, 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 they are bringing down levels of 3 important things that your skin needs to thrive: water, oil, and the microbiome. So we are here today talking about some of the shenanigans that cause us to lose our internal shine, which then results in a loss of our external shine and a decrease of that oil, water, and microbiome that we need to glow. One of the shenanigans that really, really, really brings us down is shame. Shame is a cognitive and emotional process by which we look at a situation that maybe we didn't do our best, or maybe we missed the mark. And we interpret that as a failure, and we interpret failure as something that should be punished, that should be looked down upon, that should be scorned. Shame can also just come from our perception of other people's perception of who we are, what we're capable of, and how the world is going to respond to that us. And, you know, shame in our society has historically been a tool of control. So if I can make you feel ashamed, then I can maybe prevent behavior that I don't like, because as humans, that emotional tugging downwards of our joy that comes from shame is painful, and we don't want to experience it again. So, for example, if you got in trouble as a little kid, your parents would say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. You ought to be ashamed of yourself." So what they're saying is, in order for you to avoid this feeling of shame, then you don't need to do that thing anymore. Now, it might have been more helpful for them to say, "Oh my goodness, you just did this. This is the negative consequence that that's going to have in your life. So if you want to live your best life, let's try not to do that again." But that lesson might take a little bit longer to resonate with you. And so what we end up doing is defaulting to this negative, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And then on a larger scale, we do this in our culture. You know, some star ends up having some mishap or they make a mistake, and we're like, Oh my goodness, ain't that a shame? Look at what he did. It's a crying shame. Again, we don't even have all of the information about what might be going on with that person, what were the finer details of the situation, but we are wanting people to conform to a certain standard of what we believe is right behavior. So if they don't, then we shame them and we scorn them and we exile them from community. And so because we have been conditioned into the control of shame, we end up doing the same thing to ourselves and people that we love. And we have this mistaken idea that shame is supposed to motivate, but it ends up really scarring and shading our shine. So in medical school and residency, shame was a really big tool that teachers use. And one of my worst rotations in medical school was my surgery rotation. Surgery was all about shame. First of all, there is the sterile field. So you have to put on your bonnet, you have to put on a gown, you have to put on these booties, and then you have to scrub in. So you got all this antibacterial soap and you're scrubbing in, you pop on your latex gloves, and then after that, you cannot touch anything until you enter the sterile field. And then once you're in the sterile field, you have to stay in there because if you bring bacteria into the surgical field, you could contaminate a patient and make them sick. So yes, the whole concept is phenomenal, and yes, we should maintain the sterile field. However, teaching medical students to do this is kind of challenging because we're not used to being so careful and cautious. So my surgery attendings would use shame as a way to deter contamination of the sterile field. So if you touched anything and you contaminated the field, oh my God, how could you be so idiotic? You gotta pay better attention. And they're saying these things to you in front of nurses and your colleagues. And of course, you feel ashamed. You do not ever want to experience that shame again. So the next time, you are super cautious, you're extra careful. But the problem is that I ended up spending more time worrying about whether I was contaminating the sterile field than I was about actually seeing what was going on in the surgery and learning. And it dehumanized the practice of medicine because now shame is motivating my action as opposed to care and concern about my patient's well-being. Like, that should be my motivation for wanting to stay sterile. So then after you get into the surgical field and you're looking at the body and kind of observing what the surgeon is doing, then they engage in a practice called pimping. And what pimping is they ask you questions successively, and sometimes the questions are like really obscure facts that you would have no reason to know. And then when you don't know the answer, like, oh my gosh, you are just chopped liver. Like, you're never going to be a great doctor because you don't know where the splanchnic nerve is or what innervates the rotator processor thingy muscle, right? So I'm in the surgery with this Dr. Savage, and of course he's ready to start pimping. So I feel my heartbeat getting faster and faster. I'm like, oh my God, he's gonna start asking questions. He's gonna start asking questions. In the back of my mind, I'm like, so first of all, I can barely even see onto the surgical table because I'm short. I cannot even see what's inside of these guts that you got your hand all swirling around in. Second of all, everything is the same color. It's either red because it has blood all over it, or it's some puke pink looking color because that's what the inside of our bodies look like. So now you want me to be able to distinguish between this squirmy pink thing versus this hard pink thing, right? So again, the fear of shame has motivated me to stay up until after midnight studying and looking at the anatomy and rehearsing it to myself over and over again. And the fear of shame had me to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure that we had surgical tape and scissors and gauze and a suture kit and any other random item that you might ask me for, Dr. Savage, in the bag. So my brain is a little bit scrambled right now. But you don't care about none of that. You just want to make me feel ashamed. And so, did that motivate me to study? Yes. Did it motivate me to make sure that bag had everything it needed in it? Yes. Did it make me feel more capable? Did it make me feel like I could shine as a doctor? That I could do outstanding work? That I was where I was supposed to be doing what I was meant to do? No, absolutely not. And so I want to encourage you that even if shame has been the tool that you use to control yourself, if you have used shame as a way to decrease your tendency to engage in behaviors that are not productive, I want to encourage you to realize that although you may be getting the results that you want, it's coming at a cost. It's boosting up your cortisol levels. It's decreasing the size of who you are in your eyes. And today, I want you to consider stopping the shenanigans of shame that are blocking your shine, because you are here to shine. So in this process of stopping the shenanigans of shame, I want to actually give you some steps that you can take, because I don't want this just to be fluffy expressions and lots of words and you leave the conversation liking what I said, but not really having any steps that you can take to apply what I said. So what I want you to do first is I want you to ask yourself some important questions. What do I have to be ashamed of? What do I have to be ashamed of? What are the things that nag and gnaw at me and cause me to feel unworthy, disgusting, unlovable, like a failure? And what could I gain if I trade in my shame for a new shine? So that's the first thing. I want you to sit quietly and ask yourself those questions. Then I want you to engage in a process of acceptance. For every item that you identify as generating shame, I want you to begin to embrace not only the experience that produced that shame, but I also want you to embrace the effort that was present, even in the moment that you were faltering, even in a situation where you didn't quite make the mark. There was still some good effort on your part, and I want you to honor that, and I want you to embrace it. And then I want you to embrace the education that that experience provided. Because when we are in shame, we forget about all of the good things that can come out of an experience of failure or falling short. So after you have asked the right questions, after you have engaged in acceptance, I want you to consider adjusting. So just because I did something that I am feeling ashamed of, that doesn't mean that I have to keep doing the same thing over and over. And I can make some adjustments. I can course correct. And finally, I want you to affirm. What I want you to affirm is that your shortcomings are covered by God's love. God is not like Dr. Savage. God is not waiting for us to slip up and make a mistake. He wants to cover a multitude of our sins with his love. And I want you to embrace that truth, and I want you to affirm it for yourself as many times as you need to. Let's stop the shenanigans of shame, because it's time for us to shine. Until next time, be well, be prosperous, be joyful, walk in peace. And if this was helpful to you in any way, go ahead and click that like, subscribe to the channel, throw some feedback in the comments, and I can't wait to see you next time.
Help me, Lord, I need